Hi everyone, it's Barbara. Welcome back to my channel. I have 3 Christmas, or you could use them for winter DIYs for you today. So let's go ahead and get started on the first project. I am using these cardboard deer ornaments from Dollar General. They come 4 for $2 and I will be using 3 of those. I removed the hangers and then the bows with the bells, but I did keep the bows with the bells and I'll use those later on in the video. To fill in the holes, I used some spackling on both sides of the deer, and then I took a skewer just to create that little indention that's already in there. Then I waited for that to dry, and I took some Apple Barrel Warm Buff and some Apple Barrel Nutmeg acrylic paint and mixed those together to try to get a very similar color to what the deer already was, because I want to keep it that color. It's not necessary to do both sides, but I did go ahead and get both sides of the deer painted because I will be covering up one side. After that paint dried, I'm going to be creating some scarves for the deers, and I am just using some scrap ribbon that I already had on hand. I'm going to be using 2 of the red and black and 1 of the white and black buffalo check, and I'm just going to fold that until I get it to the width that I want it to be for the scarf, and then I'll glue that together. And then I'll glue that around the deer. So I'll be creating 2 of the deer with the red and black and 1 with the white and black. And I'm just going to glue that around, making sure that I leave enough space to cover up that hole that's in the front where the hanger was. Once I get that glued in place, I'll cut it down to the length I want, and then I'm going to cut slits in the end to make it look more like a realistic scarf. And I'm going to do that for all 3 deer. For the base of this project, I am using a base that came off of a nativity set from Dollar General, and I've already used the nativity set in a previous DIY, and this was the base that came in that pack, which was perfect. It has these 3 little grooves, and these deer fit perfectly in there. I'm just going to glue 1 in each of the slats, spacing them apart. And I'm just using some hot glue. And once I get these in place, this project is finished. So simple and easy, but yet I love how it turned out. And you can leave this up all winter long, not just for Christmas. Let me know what you think of project number 1. I really like how this one turned out. If you're new to my channel and this is your first time here, I would love it if you would click that subscribe button and the bell icon below this video so that YouTube will notify you the next time I upload a new video. And if you've missed any of my previous Christmas videos, I will have a link to that playlist in my description box below if you are interested in watching any of those. Now let's go ahead and get started on project number 2. I am using one of these beautiful landscape scenes from the Shriners Hospital calendar, and I used my Cricut cutter to cut out the picture that I wanted to use, which is this gorgeous winter scene. I'm using one of these plastic 8x10 frames from Dollar Tree that has that wood grain look in the front, and I just removed the glass and the paper, and now I'm just going to take my scenery picture there and cut it down to size so that it will fit on the back of the frame. I took a glue stick and just attached the photo onto the back of the frame and made sure I got all those wrinkles out. I'm using some of these assorted wooden dowels. They come with some square dowels in there, so I'm using one of those and then a piece of one that I had left over that came out of that pack. And I'm going to mark the center of each side of the frame so I will know where to place my dowels. After I get those centers marked, I'm going to mark the longest dowel to 10 inches because that's the width of the frame. And then I'm going to use my handsaw to cut that down to size. I'm just going to place that in there for now so that I can measure the top and bottom pieces. After I get those measured out, I'll go ahead and again use my handsaw to cut those down. Then I'll take some sandpaper and make sure I smooth those ends out so it'll fit flushly within the frame. I go ahead and hot glue the centerpiece down, and then I'm going to mark the center of that so I'll know where my top and bottom pieces need to meet. Then I will glue those pieces into place by making sure I put some glue on the end and getting that flush right there where that middle wood piece is. Then I took some Waverly chalk paint in white, and I only gave my frame one coat because I wanted it to have a nice distressed look because it already has that dark brown on there. I wanted to make sure that that wood grain and then a little bit of that brown peeked through so it looked distressed and a little bit rustic. Then I just simply placed my photo back into the frame, pushed the little tabs down, and this project is finished, and I absolutely love how it turned out. It's like you're standing inside of a cabin looking out of the window at this gorgeous scene. Let me know what you think of project number 2. Now moving on to project number 3, I am using this tin mailbox. This came from Dollar General for $1. And I go ahead and remove that sticker off the bottom. And then I'm going to give mine 3 coats of Waverly chalk paint in white. You could absolutely spray paint this, but it was raining on the day that I was crafting this, so I just opted to go ahead and use my chalk paint and paint it, and I think it turned out really nice. Then I took some painter's tape and went around the flag because although the flag is red, it was a little bit too bright. So I'm going to use some Folk Art Christmas Red acrylic paint, and I'm going to give that 2 coats on the front and back of the flag, just to darken it up just a little bit. Then I'm going to set that to the side to dry and create the base. I am using one of these boxes that has a drawer insert. I just needed the outside. Then one of the bamboo cutting boards. And then one of these cardboard tubes. This came out of a Deco Mesh roll. And it was nice and thick, so I chose to use that. And I used my handsaw to cut that down so I could get a nice flush cut at the top. Took some sandpaper and went over that to get those rough edges off. And mine measured about 9.5 inches. Out of this Dollar Tree puzzle piece, I'm going to use one of those wooden round pieces. Then to attach my box to the cutting board, I'm using some Gorilla Wood glue and some hot glue. And I'm just going to place that at the edge right there in the center. So this will create the box for the mailbox post. With some E6000 and some hot glue, and then I put some hot glue right there in the back to make sure it stayed flush. I put that cardboard tube in there and let that glue set up. And then I put some E6000 and hot glue on the top to place that round wooden piece so the mailbox would be able to sit flush on there. I gave this piece, the entire piece, 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in white. And I did go down inside of the lamp post box about 1/4 of the way, just in case you could see that. Once that has dried, now it is time to decorate it. And I will be using 4 of Dollar Tree's garland ties. And I'm going to go ahead and give those a nice dusting of my chalk paint. And I did that on the front and back of each piece. And then I made sure they were dry before I attached 2 of them together. I'm just going to twist it around each other to make one long piece. And then I took some of Dollar Tree's berry garland and twisted that around the garland tie. And then I'm going to take some of Dollar Tree's battery operated white lights and twist that around the garland tie as well. Once I get that in place, I can just put the battery pack inside the box for the lamppost. And I'm just showing you here, that's where it's going to sit, but I do have to move it out of the way so that I can wrap the garland around the lamppost. And then once I get that where I want it, I'm just going to hot glue the top piece to the cardboard tubing so it'll stay in place. Now this part is completely optional. I am using the greenery off of one of these Dollar Tree picks. I wanted it because they were a little bit longer, but you could certainly use one of the garland ties. And then I took a piece of a pool noodle and cut that down so I could use that in the box to set my greenery pieces in. Once I get all of that in place, I am going to take those 3 greenery pieces and then a handful of mini pine cones. Now these pine cones came from Hobby Lobby, but Dollar Tree does sell these mini pine cones. And I gave each of those a nice dusting of my white chalk paint. Then I took some of Dollar Tree's cubes and I hot glued 4 together. So I made 2 sets of 4. And then, well, it was 4 sets of 4, but I'm going to glue 2 of those together. So you're going to need 4 sets of 4, and then I glued 2 together. And then I took some of the tumbling tower pieces and I glued 3 of those together, and then the other 3 I will glue on top of that. So I'm making these tiny little presents. And then I took 9 more tumbling tower pieces so I could stack that 3 high. So it'll be 3 pieces, and then it'll be 3 sets of that glued together. Gosh, I hope that made sense, you guys. I'm using some burlap fabric and some buffalo check fabric. Now, the burlap fabric came from burlapfabric.com, and the buffalo check fabric came from Dollar Tree. And I am just going to wrap these boxes just like you would wrap a Christmas present. And I'm using some hot glue to hold that in place. And I'm going to wrap 3 of these in the buffalo check print. And then I'm going to wrap 2 of these in the burlap fabric print. Now, if you use the burlap fabric, please be very careful because it's really thin and it has those tiny little holes in there, so you don't want to burn yourself with the hot glue. And once I get those together, I will be stacking some of them on top of each other, and I just like the contrast of the colors. So now that I have all of those wrapped and the greenery pieces have dried, I'm just going to place those in the styrofoam until I fill that in, and then I'm going to glue some pine cones in there. Now, don't glue the pine cones on the left-hand side because you have to be able to remove your battery pack so that you could change your batteries out. So I just filled those in with the pine cones, and then I took those bows with the bells from project number 1, and I just wrapped the boxes around, or wrapped the bow around the box, and glued that in place on the larger one, and then I stacked some of the smaller ones together, alternating between the buffalo check and the burlap. And once I got those bows in place, I just hot glued them down to the base of the lamppost right in front of where the mailbox will be, just like someone had delivered these packages. And then I'll glue some mini pine cones around a couple of these presents. And I just love how this is turning out. It is so pretty. So now it's time to decorate the mailbox, and I'm using the other 2 garland ties, and I'm going to cut one in half, and I'm just going to place them on top of the mailbox to shape them, and then I'll cut that longer piece down. So I wanted the center piece to be longer than the other 2 pieces, so it would look like a swag on top of the mailbox. And I'm using one of these mini wreaths from Dollar Tree. This fit perfect. I just cut it in half with my scissors, and I did go in and trim all those extra little tall green pieces that were sticking up that didn't have anything attached to them. I'm going to hot glue those 2 together facing each other. Well, the floral is away, but the little greenery pieces facing each other. Then I hot glued the garland ties on top of the mailbox and made sure that I glued those ends down so that would create the base of the swag. And then I put an excessive amount of hot glue on top to hold those flowers, the wreath ring, right on top. Then any pieces that came apart, just glue those together and then move your flowers and your pine cones around to cover that greenery piece at the bottom. Then I took some E6000 and hot glue, placed that on top of the mailbox, and then held that in place until that glue set up. And it took a couple of minutes for it to set up, and this is how it turned out. I just love how this mailbox turned out. It is so pretty. Let me know what you think. If you have a favorite, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Please take care, and I will see you guys next time.